what is Feedback Fruits? Just like I said earlier, it's a learning management system integrated tool suite that provides an all-in-one solution to boost student engagement and collaboration in any course setting. They provide a large variety of tools for you to utilize, and these tools can be used for giving feedback, for activating study material, and for facilitating interactive classrooms. And again, the two tools that we'll be focusing on today are their interactive document tool and their peer review tools. So I'm going to pass this over to Maite to discuss the interactive document tool.
Thank you, Ariella. Okay, I'm going to be sharing my screen. Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so here we are in Blackboard, and the great thing about this tool is it's completely integrated with Blackboard. And how we would go ahead and build it is, I'm here in this module right now. I would go into build content, go ahead and go all the way down until I would find Feedback Fruits interactive document. For this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and name this one test 4, and then go ahead all the way down here to submit. And as we can see, it's appeared over here. I would then go ahead and click on it, and it would pull up the LTI tool for us. Awesome. So this is what you would see, and this is Feedback Fruits platform. We would go ahead and get started, and it would pull this up for us. This right here is a really neat feature of copy from existing. If you've already created a document in the past, you could go ahead and copy it from existing for any future courses, and it wouldn't copy over any of the responses from the students, but it would copy over any questions or comments that you as a professor would have put in there. So as we can see, here in the first bubble, we have our instructions, and this is just the memo that they have in there, but you can make it your own and kind of let students know this activity is to help you improve comprehension and retention by engaging with the study material presented in the document format. So for any readings that you might have, this is a great tool to incorporate. And the best thing here is you have the option to go ahead and record your voice to make it more personal. And then also you could attach a picture or a document onto there. Here we have the option for students to contribute individually and see the contributions of everyone, or for students to contribute individually and see contributions only within groups. So this is a good option if you have a bigger class and you don't want to bombard students with the contributions from everyone, and you go ahead and create smaller groups. And then when we go down in number 2, this is the meat of this tool and how great it is. So here we would go ahead and attach the document. There's 3 ways you could do it. You could either drag and drop, choose the document from your files, or go ahead and paste the link here. If you're pasting a link in here, just be mindful that that it's an accessible link where students don't need to have like an account to sign in and whatnot. But those are the 3 methods, and I'm going to go ahead and take us over to an activity I already submitted a document into. So once you would submit your document, it would look like this. You'd go ahead and open that document to be able to edit into it. Ooh, it took me all the way down there. So this is the beginning of the article, and as you can see, we have the plus and minus over here, and then this blue arrow. What this does is it'll pop up all the questions and discussion threads that we've created. So let me show you how we can go ahead and create those. So let's say if you were to scroll down here and you really wanted students to focus on this topic, you could go ahead and highlight a sentence that really like makes a point that you want them to know about. And then you would go ahead and click on it, and it would give you 2 options. So here we have the question card and the discussion thread. Let's go ahead and do the question card first, because within the question card, we have 2 options. So we have a multiple choice question where you would go ahead, enter your question, put the 2 options in there, and you could add more options. So you'd select the right answer. And down here, you would have additional options, which would require participants to answer before continuing in the document. So that's a good way to make sure that your students are being mindful and reading through the document. And then also you'd have the option to allow participants to select multiple choices. And my personal favorite is scratch off mode. This is great because it's providing instant feedback and your students can self-correct and kind of learn from their own mistakes. So that one is just a great tool to be able to use. So that's a multiple choice question. And then over here, we have the open question. And here you would just go ahead and type in your question. If you wanted to have a correct answer or not, you could put the correct answer on here. And then you have the same option where you can lock the document and they can't continue until they've gone ahead and answered this. And then the other option is that they can see the answers from the other students after answering their own. So that's good too, because if it's an open-ended question, they can just be able to see how their other students are interpreting the material and the document as well. So they can learn from that. All right, so those are the question cards. And I want to go ahead and take y'all to the discussion thread. So this discussion thread is great. It's a great tool because you can go ahead and input something that maybe you've touched on it before in class and you want students to have a mini discussion prior to class. So you could go ahead and put the topic here and publish it. Again, it gives you the option to record your voice or attach any other image, or maybe if you have like a graph to go along with that discussion, you could go ahead and attach the image. And then this discussion thread, what it does is students are able to answer and kind of put their own thoughts in there, and they're able to see each other's responses as well and respond to it. So it's a great way to engage students in the reading material prior to the class. I know we love to have discussions in person, and this doesn't shy away from that. With this tool is just great because you're ensuring that your students are as prepared as possible prior to class. So I went ahead and went back into this original mode. And in here, we can see we have the option to change the file if at any point you realize that you actually want to upload another article for the students to read. But once you've gone ahead and added your question cards and discussion threads, it'll go ahead and pop up here. So you can see how many question cards and discussion threads you have. And within the settings, you have some options to personalize this experience for your students as well. You can decide whether or not your students are allowed to download the material for any copyright infringement. And then you can also give another option. This option is where you're the one that's going ahead and adding the question cards or the discussion threads. If you want it to be more student focused, you can actually just maybe add one question card in the whole document, but require students to post at least one question card and one discussion thread. And you just go ahead and select that in here, and that's how they would engage with the document. So you're kind of putting the critical thinking more on their end, which is a great tool as well. And then this allows for students to see the other question cards that have been created by other students. And then this one would be for students to contribute anonymously, which is a nice tool to have so that students can go ahead and participate freely without getting too worked up about writing the perfect response. And then this part under here allows you to have deadlines and real-time control. So you can go ahead and open the activity at a certain time and close the activity at a certain time. And then let me take you down to the third option. The third option allows for, just gonna go ahead and let you guys see it from the beginning. So you can go ahead and add 3 different tools onto here. One of them is configurable grading. It allows you to kind of give different point values for what the students have done with the document. Like if they viewed it, they get 50 points. If they've answered all the questions, they get 25 points. And then you have all these other options to pick from. So you can determine this however you'd like. And that's great too, because then, you know, the students have a clear understanding of what they're being graded on. You can also do it a pass-fail grade instead of a percentage grade. And that would just be like, you know, in order for students to pass, they need to have X amount of points or more. And you can go ahead and change that. All right, and then let's go to the other 2 options. Participation grading assignment. This one is great. Great tool. You're really giving the students autonomy over their grade and assessment. Because here what they're doing is they're going to select their best contribution to be graded on. So let's say you had 2 questions and one of them they were like, yeah, I wrote that pretty well and I'm pretty confident in my response. They could go ahead and select that contribution and that would be the one that you would grade. And you could also require them to submit X amount of questions. And the last feature here is reflect on activity. Reflection is a great tool to make sure that your students are kind of taking a beat to pause and think about what they've learned from the materials. So over here, you'd be able to give the deadline, kind of an idea of how many words you're expecting from them. And here's just a few questions that they've put in. Feedback Fruits has gone ahead and incorporated in here, but you could write out whatever you would want them to reflect on. And it's a pretty neat tool. So this is the interactive document, and it's absolutely amazing. And then over here on the left hand, the bottom of the left hand, you see that little chat box. This is the support help desk. And if your students, I do encourage, like if you or your students have any questions or technical issues, to go ahead and contact them directly through here. They're super responsive, get back to you quickly, and they're gonna have the best answers possible because they know Feedback Fruits better than anyone. And that's interactive document. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing and send it over to Ariella.
Thank you, Maite. So let me just share my screen. Okay, let me move this over because I have, okay, there we go. So right now I'm just in my sandbox course, and this is just a course that I have for whenever I want to test out new tools. So before I begin, I just want to emphasize that with Feedback Fruits, everything is easily integrated into Blackboard. So it will sync your groups. If you already have groups that you create on Blackboard, they can sync to your Feedback Fruits assignments. As well with the grades, anything that you grade on Feedback Fruits will be synced to the actual gradebook on Blackboard. So you don't have to worry about keeping having grades in 2 different places. Everything is integrated into one. Same thing with your deadlines as well for all of your assignments. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to build content, and I'm going to scroll all the way down and click on the Feedback Fruits peer review. And then here I can just type in whatever I want. So I'm just going to type in test as my name for this assignment. And then I am just going to press submit. And if I scroll down, you can see that I have the test created right here. So before I begin, I just want to emphasize the importance of the peer review tool, because it's a great item for facilitating peer learning, and it helps to guide your students in reviewing each other's work. So in the peer review, it's perfect for draft versions of different assignments, such as with a report. It's great for homework assignments, such as case studies. And it's great for recorded presentations and for recorded role play videos. So I'm just going to press the Get Started button. And again, just like with the interactive document, at the very top, I can add in my instructions. I'm just going to type in test. And just like with what Maite showed, you can record your voice instead, or you can just upload a document if you already have your instructions written out in a different document file. By default, it sets for individual assignment. So that just means that the students will hand in their work individually and review work individually as well. But you can choose to change this by pressing the change button. And here I can choose whether they hand in their work individually or as a group if I have group set up. And for the review process, so when they're reviewing other people's work, you can choose for them to have them do that individually within their own groups or outside of their groups. I'm just going to leave it as individually. And then for the second step, you have your submission information. So this is just a great area where you can include your, if you have any preferences on file types, such as PDFs, or if you have any particular requirements, such as if you want your students to submit their document in APA format or MLA format as well. So I'm just going to type in test again. And you can also set your deadline. So I'm just going to put my deadline to be the 24th. And as you can see here, I can edit the time as well. And if I press the settings, I can control how I want students to submit this. So I can control the amount of required submissions that they have to hand in. I can set it to be exactly whichever number up to 5. I can select it to be between a particular number. So I can say between 1 and 4, for example. Or I can do a minimum of a number. So if I want a minimum of 2 submissions, I can edit that here. Also, if I look below that section, I can see that I have different options for allowing students to submit different files. So I can control whether they can submit documents, videos, a website link, images, audio, or more. And you can just control this. I recommend leaving multiple options selected just to align with the universal design for learning principles that just allows for students to have more choices whenever they're submitting their assignments. And in this section as well, you can allow for a late hand-in. And in this section, you can also control the privacy. So by default, submissions are only visible to the people who are reviewing it. But you can change that and have it be available to people who are doing submissions and receive feedback are visible to every student after the deadline, or you can actually set it to be to a point where submissions and receive feedback are visible to students who hand it in after the deadline. So you have a couple of options here. And in this section, this is where you can control your feedback criteria. So if I press the add button, it'll take me to this little pop-up. And in this pop-up, as you can see here, I have a couple of criteria that I've used in the past. So they actually save it, so you can just select it and use it, and you don't have to create a new one. But I'm going to show you what it looks like whenever you're creating a new criteria. So I'm going to select this section here. And as you can see, I have 3 options. I can add a rubric, I can add a scale rating, and I can add a comment criterion. And you can also mix and match. So you don't have to just stick with one, you can add multiple different types to one set of criterion. So I'm just going to select the rubric just to show you what it looks like. And as you can see, it's your standard rubric where you have the columns here ranging from beginning all the way up to exemplary. And of course, you can change it and delete whatever column you need to do so. Ooh, I apologize. And you can also control the amount of points that each column is worth here. And if I go below that, I can add a description for each rating. And if I look at my actual row, I can select what criterion I want. So if they're submitting a paper, I can select tone, I can select research, and I can select grammar as being some of the items that I want to look at. And then here, as you can see, I have the ability to allow comments. And this just means that whenever the students are reviewing their peers' work, they can go to each row and they can add in their own comments. So if they have something that they want to add about the student's tone, they can just say, hey, this is what I noticed about your tone of the paper. Or if they want to make a comment on the research that their peer did, they can add it to each section here. So that's just a useful feature to organize the comments of your students. And you can choose to make it so that a specific number of comments are required. So you can set it to be 2, or you can just set it to be 1. So I'm just going to press the done button. And that will be my rubric. So as you can see here, the sections I created are listed. And if I want to add more, I can just go to the scale rating just to show you what it looks like. So again, this is just your classic scale, and I'm just going to do tone again. So that's what I'm focusing on. And I can set whatever description I want for that criterion. And then you can choose the amount of points you want for your scale to be. So you can do from 3 points all the way up to 10. And just like with the rubric, you can allow for comments. So I'm going to select add another criterion just to show you that you can add multiple criteria to this item as well. But for now, I'm just going to delete the section. And again, just to show you, you can add a comment one. So again, I'm just going to stick with the same theme of tone. I'm going to type in my test. And then this is just allow for our students to add in whatever comments that they want. And I'm going to go ahead and delete the section. And I'm going to press done. So again, everything that I've done is saved and it's loaded right here. So I have 2 sections with 6 rubric criteria. And just like with the previous section, you can set your own deadline. So I'm going to make my deadline be the 31st, a week out. And another great feature is that you can also choose when the students can receive their feedback. So by default, it's set to be immediately, but you can change that to after the review deadline, after a certain date, or you can select never if you want to release it manually. You can also set a required number of reviews per student. So that just means that they have to review a certain amount of files that their assigned peers hand in. So I can just set 3 if I wish to do so, and it goes all the way up to 9. And another thing that I want to point out for feedback fruits is that if you were ever confused on what a section means, they usually include this little eye icon, and if you hover over it, it will explain what that section is. So that's just a great way to help mitigate any questions that you may have. It's available right there for you to see. Now, if I go to the other section, you can see that I have allocations. So this just controls how your students will receive the feedback that they need to, or the papers or whatever assignment that they need to grade for their peers. So by default, it's set to be that they receive everything one by one, but you can also change this to be all at once. But I recommend sticking with the one by one as to not overwhelm your students by having them receive all of the files at one time. And another great feature of the peer review tool is that you can also allow for your students to do a self-assessment and review themselves. So if I select this, if I toggle this on, then this just means that students will have to evaluate their own work before reviewing others. And if I go down to the settings here, I have more options. So if you're concerned about anonymity for your students, you can toggle this on. And that just means that whatever they review, all of their responses will be anonymous to their peers. And same thing here, these sections, these 2 items both control anonymity. So this is just for the reviewing and this is for submitting. Also, you can enable feedback writing tips here. And then these are just the default tips that will show. Also, if you have a completion checklist, you can enable that here. And it will just be shown to the students before they submit their work. So you can just add that here, whatever you want. I'm just going to put in test and select done. So moving on to the next section, you have your received reviews. So when students can rate their reviewers if you enable this. So if they get some feedback back from their peers, then they can just go ahead and rate it from a scale of 1 through 10 if you want to enable that. And you can also set a deadline for this. I'm going to do it for another, I'll set this deadline to be the 3rd. And then if I go down to the next section, One thing to note is that you don't have to have this assignment be graded. If you don't want it to be graded, you can just press the X button here and that section will disappear. But if you want this to be a graded assignment, then you have your default items here. So you can grade on the hand-in step, the completed giving feedback step, because just to show this again, everything is ordered, so it's easy to follow. So they're grading you on each step of the process. And you can also grade them on if they've written the minimum number of reviews that they need to. I can just change that again to 2. You can grade them on the ratings received on work in total, and you can grade them on if they have read all of their received feedback, because the system will track that and show what they've read or not. You have this one inactive one here that you can choose to enable as well, and it's whether they handed in their assignment on time. If I go down to the settings, just like what Maite showed, you can choose to have this be a pass or fail assignment instead of your traditional percentage-based assignment. And then here I can choose whatever amount of points I need them to have as a minimum for passing the assignment. So I'm just going to select 50. And if I press this little plus sign within the purple circle, I have 2 different modules that I can add onto this entire process. So I can add a participation creating assignment. And as you can see here, it will show the best contributions that each student has made. So they can you can include instructions on how they can grade their contributions. This is very useful if they're working within a group. So you can just keep track of the different contributions that students have made to the assignments. You can also do a reflect on the activity. So at the very end of the process, or if you want them to reflect on their actual work or on the process of itself, you can add this section here. Again, you can set your own deadline. You can select a required amount of words that needs to be. So I can just say at least 100 and at most 600 words. And then here could be your instructions or what you want them to consider. So that is what it looks like to create the peer review doc assignment on feedback fruits for Blackboard. But I also just want to show you what it looks like from your end when everything's already completely created. So I'm just going to go into an assignment that I created beforehand. So as you can see here, I can see my overall student progress. I have 3 students in my sandbox course and 3 of them have completed the assignment. But all of that will be right here for you to see. And then if I press the little downward arrow icon, it'll give me more information. So I can see how much of how many points that they've achieved so far. I can see at what part of the progress of the process that they're at. So for this student, they've only completed the hand-in part of the process, and they're still missing all these other steps for the assignment. Oops, I apologize. And here I can choose to download the information as a file. So if you want to save this information to your computer, you could just select the Export Analytics button. And again, if I go below here, I can see the instructions I created. I can also see the submissions. So here, April submitted the assignments. I can see that she handed it in on time because there's a green check mark along with the status next to it. And I can see the file that she submitted. So if I click on this file, I can see the exact type in the file that she submitted to the platform. If you have a lot of students who have already submitted their files, then you can just choose to download all the submissions at once by pressing this download button. And you can see how many participants are active. So here it says 1 out of 3 participants active. So this is just a great visual cue to see what's happening with your assignments. Another thing that I wanted to showcase, which is another great feature from Feedback Fruits, is that you can actually the students can actually see your status. So if you're online, they'll be able to see it here. So as you can see, it says teacher now online. And again, you can see here that I have the given review section. and I can see, okay, this is 80% of the grade, and I can see how many days are left for students to submit everything. If at any point I need to postpone it, I can press the postpone button to delay the deadline. And again, you can see all the criteria that you set by pressing on that button, and it will appear here. So I'm just going to X out of this. And again, all of this is blank because I don't have students who have completed this part of the process. And again, with your received reviews, so this would be where all of your student reviews are located. Again, I can choose to postpone it. And going down to the final section here, you have your grading. So again, I can see that April has only achieved 10 points from this assignment. So she only has an overall grade of 10%. If I wish to publish everything right now, I could just select publish grades, and then I'll get this notification that's asking me if I'm sure if I want to submit the grades to Blackboard, because what will happen is that when you press this, all the grades from feedback fruits will be added to your Blackboard gradebook. So just like I said earlier, everything is easily integrated into the learning management system. So I'm going to exit out of this. And just as a final item, I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like from the student's end. So I entered into the student preview for Blackboard, and I'm going to course documents. I'm scrolling all the way down, and I'm selecting that same peer review assignment. Okay, so here I'll see the instructions for the assignment. I can see who's online. This is the part where I can submit my file. So I can choose to do an MP3, a PDF, or a PNG, or whatever other file that I wish to include. Or if I have a link, I can submit it here and press the submit button. This is the section where I can give reviews to my, give feedback to my peers. And another great feature is that your students can actually see the consequences of not completing this step. So if they click on the consequences button, they'll see this information here of what will happen if they don't do everything within the correct amount of time. Moving on to the next section, this is the part where they'd be able to receive read the feedback that they've received from their peers. So because no one else is in this, this class, it just says that I'm awaiting feedback because I don't really have anything yet. But students will be able to read that and just be aware of whatever status that they're at for this is part of the process. Again, it'll have the percentage of the grade here. So it says this is worth 10% and 10% of the grade is missed. And if they go down all the way to the bottom, this is just another area where they could see their grades along with within the Blackboard gradebook as well. So that is it for the peer review tool. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Hey, it's Bernadette. So first off, I'm thrilled because these are both features that I've been looking for, and it's early. I've already introduced some of the concepts to the class, so perfect. I definitely want to use both of these. If I understand correctly, the peer review assignment provides a grade for the reviewing, not for the submission.
You can include the grade for the submission as well. As you can see right here, as a student, I can see that the actual submission is worth 10% of the grade, but you can edit this to be a higher percentage if you wish to do so.
So let me see if I just work through scenarios. So Fred is in my class. I have no Fred in my class. I'm making it up, but Fred is in my class. Fred submits a paper, a response paper. And Fred is asked to review two other students.
Okay.
Fred will get a total grade at the end. 10% of that grade is going to be what he's actually submitted. Who grades that? Do I grade that, or does it come from the peers? Okay,
so because this is a peer review assignment, a large majority of the grading is coming from the peers themselves, but you can monitor because you can see exactly how they've evaluated their the other students in their class and see what they're doing. So you can sort of sign off on it. But you, in this file type, you have a little bit less of the, what's the right word for it? a larger focus is put on how the students are evaluating the work and not so much on how the teacher is evaluating it.
Okay, this is perfect because 7.5% of the grade is participatory, is a participation grade. And so I've already decided I was going to do 7 articles for a reflection piece, which I can use the part that Maite went through, which is thrills me. And then I could put a 0.5% of that grade coming from this. So no one freaks out that like their life is in someone else's hands. So
Yeah.
if we go through the scenario as you proposed it, Fred submits a paper, 10% of his grade is going to come from the average of the 2 people who review his grade.
No, 10%. So the average of the people who've graded him will be in this section here. That'll be the larger chunk, which would be around 80% of his grade. But again, you can change that. So let me actually go back to the teacher mode.
Okay, I thought that the 80% was the feedback he was giving to other people. In other words, how well he did that. So maybe you could review this. It would be great.
So let me go back into the assignment peer review here. Okay. So you're correct. This is the large chunk is when he's giving the review to the other people. But here is where they'll have this section where they can see exactly what they're grading on and what they can access. If I go back here, him receiving the reviews and reading that's 10% of the grade. But if I go down below, let me actually see if I can just edit this. There you go. I can change this. So as you can see here, the hand and stuff, so them actually submitting the assignment is worth 10 points or 10%. Them completing the giving feedback essentially is 20%. Them actually giving feedback to their peers is worth another 20%. I think what the system does is that to sort of make everything easier, they just sort of lump those grades together into one, and that's where they get the 80%. Because these 3 sections are all being put into one section, but this is the real breakdown. So you have the feedback that they are giving, if they've written feedback themselves, and the ratings received on the work in total.
Okay, so this right now, the way it's set, 40% of the grade comes from what their peers suggested that their grade should be.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, got it. And this is all, it can be changed. Okay.
Yes. So you can see here, I can just minimize that or increase it.
No, this is great. I'm really excited. I'm teaching freshmen, so I doubt that we could use this with too much of the material just because, it's a lot that they're learning. But if we use it for a tiny piece of it, that would make me very happy. This is great. I definitely want to work on this. So Ariella or Maite, if I want to do this and I want someone to help me walk through and make sure I'm doing it correctly, do I contact you, Ariella, to kind of go through that? Okay.
Yes, you can contact me, Maite, April, and we can all help you, whichever one you want. And also, sorry, if you want this enabled in your course, then you would have to reach out to the learning platforms team to have them enable feedback groups for you.
Okay, great. And got it.
Right. And we would just like to share with you that the law school shared the seats with us. So it's actually them who purchased a subscription for this tool. And they were just so generous that they allowed us to have access to the tool. So we might have limited access to the tool for like a year or until fall semester. I'm verifying that, but hopefully we'll get a lot of success in this tool, and hopefully we can get financial support to make it like a tool that everyone can have access to. But we're still working on that end, so we're not sure if we can have access to the tool beyond this. But the law school have such great success. Their academic vice dean actually used the tool for his 120 students, and he said that he has never seen his students so well prepared for his class, and he actually used the tool for face-to-face instruction. So this is going to be so handy even if you're teaching remotely, hybrid, face-to-face instruction. You'll find that the students actually also enjoyed using the tool. they said that they didn't have that kind of opportunity before. Now they were actually able to practice their higher order thinking skills, not only individually, but with their peers.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic tool, and I could see how graduate school students could really adopt it and work with it. I think freshmen, it would be a little much to have their grade dependent on it, but I definitely want to introduce them. So I will contact you guys for this. And I will contact Maite because I have some reflection pieces that I want to do with some journal articles. So I want to be able to set that up. I was going to do it in the discussion section of Blackboard, but it sounds like I could do it here. So I want to explore that a little more in detail, if that's okay, Maite.
Yeah, and I actually think it's a great tool for freshmen as well, because you can kind of, I mean, you can play around with it, but by adding like questions in there, you can guide them more to see what it is you really want them to get out of the articles. So it's, I love this tool. I think it's a great learning tool. And I wish I would have had it when I was in college as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that as I was listening to you, the part about guiding them. So like giving them an idea of exactly, okay, this article is really about this. So yeah, that'll be great. So I'll send you guys an email. This is good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. If you think of any more questions, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. I'll add my email to the chat. And thank
Yeah,
you.
I will go ahead and do that as well.
Okay, well, I hope everyone has a great day. I'll send the recording out later just for you to have it if you want to go over anything that we talked about today.
Bye.
And
Thank you